Hello everybody, welcome to the West Ham my YouTube channel. It's Corey and this is of course the Stockport County versus West Ham United predicted 11 and score prediction video. I like the FA Cup. Listen, I hope West Ham can go as far in this competition as possible. I've said on a previous video, I'm not massively convinced that this is going to be a priority for David Moyes. We've looked at the squad depth previously. Obviously the outgoings of Snodgrass and Allaire is going to put us under a little bit of pressure. I wonder whether David Moyes is going to use this as a chance to rest some key first team players. Mikel Antonio coming back from injury, Declan Rice and Thomas Souček, who have played 3 games on the bounce for 90 minutes. We need to give these players a rest. I think West Ham have obviously got enough to go out there and beat Stockport County. You can't write them off. They're 4th in their own division. They play some expansive football. They take risks. They will try and press West Ham. This isn't a typical Premier League versus conference side. They're expansive. They play some good stuff. They use mobility to get in behind. Yes, of course, technically, the quality may not be there, but they have some players that I think can put West Ham under pressure. And depending on who plays for West Ham and depending on how ambitious Stockport are, I think they can hurt us. I still think they can hurt us. I still think they can take advantage possibly of a little bit of complacency. So I hope David Moyes comes into this game with a strong side, a side to a degree that takes the game seriously. Listen, fingers crossed we can get through to the next round. I'm sure we will. Let's get into it. Let's start with Stockport County. In goal will be Ben Hinchcliffe. Listen, I've been relatively impressed from the little that I've seen. Obviously, I've watched a few of their previous games. I think the thing with someone like a keeper like that, again, I haven't seen too much of him, but the pressure that his defence at times can put on him, given the fact that they try and push up, the wing-backs will push high. The centre-backs, even though there are 3 centre-backs in this 3-5-2 system, will push right to the halfway line. Again, I'm not sure how it will work against West Ham. They know they're coming up against quality, potentially coming up against a side that the whole way we play is based on transition. Maybe their manager will decide that's not the right approach to do, but why deviate from something that's been successful? They're 4th in their division for a reason. They have been caught on a number of occasions, particularly down those wide areas when the wing backs push up. So again, I expect West Ham to try and get in behind, have a lot of space, have a lot of time to get shots off on Hinchcliffe, and fingers crossed, listen, we've got the quality in order to get those goals. But it'll be an interesting game. You look at the set pieces again from West Ham that we've been really, really strong on this season, particularly trying to exploit them a little bit against the side that, again, is good in the air, is actually good offensively from set pieces, but I just think West Ham, with the quality that we'll have, with the experience that we'll have, we should look to try and test him throughout the game. Now, let's get to the left centre-back position. It will be... it won't be him. He'll play centre-back, to be fair. It is Hogan. He's the captain. They play the 3 centre-backs, drop in between the 2. There'll be a lot of space in between the centre-backs, and I think what you'll see, if West Ham can hit them quick enough on transition and look to press them and use, if we're going to play that 4-2-3-1, use those 3 attacking midfielders to try and attack them, win the ball in high areas, and there'll be a lot of space in which West Ham can run into and exploit. But again, he's the man that sets it up. He's the man that will sit. He'll have protection from Maynard as the pivot in this team. He plays almost like in a 6 role. But like I've said, if West Ham, we're not decisive enough on the ball, not decisive enough in transition, and we take too many touches. Again, this is a team that understands that whilst they can press, they need to get back. So they will use the pivot to slot into a few holes. Crosdale will come back. Rooney will come back as well. And they'll look to support those wide areas where Stockport possibly are pulled out of position. So this is a side that are aware of the way they play, but expect, of course, Hogan to slot in that centre back position. The right centre back is Keane. Interestingly enough, he was a centre midfielder, and what you'll see particularly from both the left centre back and the right centre back is they'll push up incredibly high. They'll look to use deliveries into the box. I'm not saying it's Sheffield United-esque, but the way that they push them and try and create that press on them, of course, is a way to try and create more opportunities and take advantage of the overloads that they could possibly use. Whilst doing that, it leaves you massively exposed in behind. I'm not sure who West Ham are going to line up on the left-hand side. I will speak about the decision that I think Moyes will take. But again, even with that choice, I think there's plenty of room in which West Ham can exploit. But again, I know we play, a low block style, and I expect us to play some kind of form of that in this game, but use those three centre attacking midfielders to push high to win the ball. And I think if you win the ball off Stockport County, you'll have so much space in which to move into that you should really be getting a couple of shots off and trying to finish this game off early, because you don't want to get into that territory where Stockport all of a sudden it's 0-0, because they can create a lot of chance throughout this game. We're going to the left-hand side of the centre-back's position. It will, of course, be Stotts. Very, very similar to Keane in the way that he'll push up really, really high. He'll look to create that press. They do have that security option in Maynard to sit a little bit deeper. But again, if they're caught out of possession, particularly on the halfway line, you'd look at West Ham to exploit that. They won't be able to get back quick enough, despite the way they play, despite being very comfortable to take the ball out. I'm not massively convinced on their mobility. A couple of times when the team is attacked, they've exploited those wide areas. They will revert to that central position, try and make things tight, and basically give up a lot of width in order to allow teams to hurt them. So I think it's going to be a task for them, to be fair. I think West Ham, particularly in those attacking areas, have got enough to go and beat them, to put pressure on them. And it depends who we play up front. I'd be interested to see who we play up front, because I do think this could be a game for them to get a goal and to get chances on goal. And if I think who's going to start does start, I think this is a perfect chance to use his finishing ability. Now, onto the midfield area, like I've already touched on, it will be Maynard in that pivot position. Listen, he's a big guy. He'll really just sit in front of those centre-backs. He'll give them a little bit of protection. In terms of him joining any press, he's very redundant in that sense. He is that insurance policy for those three centre-backs, particularly in the way that they split. Relatively mobile, physically strong. I guess if West Ham sit back a little bit, and you'll find in the number 9 is possibly on somebody like Maynard, he could make the day difficult for West Ham. I don't envisage this will happen because of the quality differential, but again, he could possibly stifle attacks. He could possibly prevent us from trying to hold the ball up and advance and possibly bring our wide players forward. So it will be an interesting battle between him and the number 9. I expect him to sit in a defensive position, possibly even slot in between the centre-backs when West Ham have the ball. So again, he's going to be the guy that's going to try and break things up. He will be the guy that tries to protect them, but don't expect him in advanced areas, because he will not make the runs. But of course, the Stockport side have caveated for that. They have got players that are willing and able to do that work. Let's start with this man. It is Crosdale. I really like him, the number 18. He's a good player who looks to distribute the ball, again, release the wing-backs if they can get him into advanced positions. You look at West Ham probably playing in a back four. If they are going to try and use the wide areas, Crosdale is the man that is going to try and get on the ball. And it's an interesting dynamic depending on who we play in these pivot positions for West Ham, because I think if you can stifle a player like him, it prevents the quick switch. It prevents them getting behind. On an off note, in the Premier League, I think West Ham have switched on massively to the ball over the top and when to time the press and when to sit back. And I think, again, I'm not sure Stockport will be effective in that, but I expect him to be on the ball a lot. I expect him to put the press on West Ham. He will play a little bit like an 8. He can play almost a 6 role in that distribute the ball and create chances. Ultimately, though, he can push on that West Ham back four, and he will push on those central defensive midfielders if he feels like Stockport can get a chance in behind it and keep the pressure on us at times. But like I've said before, particularly with the 3 attacking midfielders who do, in a Moyes system, work hard in order to win that ball, you could stifle Stockport County. You could catch them out of position. They will push them back on in quite early doors. They will try and get advanced. So again, I think it could be a chance for West Ham to counter further up the pitch. Now, in the other position, this guy has really impressed me. And even in the way that he's used within this side, it is John Rooney. He's been brought in. Interestingly enough, the way that they'll use him, he plays in an 8 role, and he'll make late runs into the box. He'll act almost like an auxiliary at times. He'll go beyond the likes of Reid. He'll go beyond the likes of Bennett as well. He just creates those overloads in the box that Stockport look to utilise, and he does get that free role in order to do so. Having said that, when the other team have the ball, he will drop in alongside Crosdale and Maynard in order to create almost a mid-block in that midfield. Not necessarily in that pivot position, but to try and narrow the play, try and make it condensed and try and prevent West Ham from playing through. So again, from an offensive, I expect him to be in a lot of offensive positions. He scored a fantastic goal the other week from the edge of the box. It is imperative that West Ham keep an eye on this guy, because he will make those late runs. He will get in beyond. This isn't a conference side that's going to be static and look to play up to their number 9 and then play off him. Although they will play like that with the 2 strikers, but they look to introduce the midfielders, like I've said, create overloads. And I think it's something for West Ham to really be aware of and not switch off from, particularly if Stockport have the ball. I've said about the wing-back position, and I'll touch on who the wing-back will be. But equally with the centre midfielder, creating the overloads in the box, the mobility in behind, the willingness to get in beyond. I think if West Ham switch off, particularly in the first 10 minutes, I expect someone like John Rooney to be on the ball, create and possibly get a shot off. And he does have the quality from the edge of the box. So I think West Ham have to definitely keep an eye out for that man. Let's go with the wing backs. Who are we going to start with here? Let's start with this man, I believe. Let's go. Yep, it's going to be Southern Hales. Southern Hales, listen, they've got 2 men. They've got Minahan and they've got Southern Hales. And he has played in the last 2 games. And although he got taken off at halftime, he's a fantastic player. And I think the way Stockport use their wing-backs incredibly expansive. They can make the inverted run. They can also stretch the play. Very, very similar to Sheffield United and what we've seen from Southampton with their conventional right back. He'll stretch the play. He's got fantastic delivery. He set up Reid in the last game as well. Really impressed with him. I think if he starts against us, he causes us some issues. I don't want to give away the team that I'm going to pick, but certainly someone will have to keep an eye on him. I think who will potentially left back will be good enough to deal with him one-on-one. But again, like I've said, creating those overloads in the wide areas and allowing Rooney to make that auxiliary run, again, is problematic. So we cannot simply switch off. They will be expansive. He will get forward. And I've seen real quality from him, particularly in the last couple of games. And Minahan, if he plays as well, it's exactly the same. The inverted runs, the link up, particularly with the likes of Rooney as that number 8, the runs in beyond, the runs inside. Again, they use these wing-backs incredibly expansively, offensively. And I think if they can get in behind West Ham, there's no reason why they can't create clear-cut chances. And with a back four, that's always the risk that we'll possibly have. Now, on the left-hand side, I believe will be Kitching. Again, very, very similar to Southern Hale. And he will just push up. I mean, exactly the same. He'll push up. He'll try and get in beyond. I've seen him get... He's not a player necessarily that will get as far beyond and to the byline as Southern Hales or Minahan. He can create the inverted run, as I've said. He'll look to gives deliveries, to be fair, at the edge of the box. And again, the numbers that they'll have in the box stage, the centre midfield, almost Rooney playing in that 8 role. And again, I think Stockport can hurt us down those avenues. They can get in behind. The right-hand side, possibly if Fredericks plays, will be an interesting battle because I'm not massively convinced someone like Kitchen's going to try and get him beyond and hurt him. And again, I back Fredericks if he can win the ball there. Transition, he'll have space to run into. He has the pace in order to do so. And it might not matter who plays on that right-hand side in terms of pace because I think we can bring the ball out and we've got space to run into without the fear, possibly, of being hurt by Stockport, particularly in transition. So that'll be an interesting matchup and a lineup. Let's get into the strikers for this game. It's going to be Bennett. Bennett will play on that left-hand side, to be fair. He'll look to interchange. In terms of when they're out of possession, it will be Reid that will try and collect the ball and play in behind and play the 1-off-2. Bennett will act as somebody who can hold the ball up and play off Reid and essentially set him up. And what a lot of the times you'll see is Reid using his athleticism to pick up the ball in slightly deeper areas and using Bennett in order to play off. But Bennett, to be fair to him, I think if Stockport do have possession, if they try and press West Ham into their own box, he will be someone that will peel off slightly to the left, will try and get in behind. Again, I'm not massively convinced on his movement to the level of Reid of what he's shown. The only thing I would say about both of these strikers for me is they're not clinical. And again, this could be the level, but in a side that for me creates a lot of chances, they haven't scored as many goals as possibly they should have done. From what I've seen, Bennett hasn't really been clinical enough, but he is in that role almost a number 10, a provider for somebody like Reid to get him beyond. And I think him, Bennett, Rooney, as I've mentioned, is almost like as a secondary number 10 in that system, will create overloads in the box and will possibly look to hurt West Ham. So again, like I say, you've got 3 attackers up against possibly 2 defenders. It will rely on somebody, whoever is playing in that pivot role, to support them and prevent those late runs and try and put a little bit of pressure off. I feel that if West Ham can counter press Stockport, there'll be so much space in behind and opportunities to hurt them and get goals that we can see this game out quite early doors. So it will be an interesting battle, 100%. But particularly for me, I'm not convinced Bennett is the guy that's going to be the game changer here. So this man, for me, is the guy. If somebody is going to score or have chances in this game, it will be him. It is Reid. For me, in this team, he's got the athleticism. He's able to drop deep. He can run in behind. He's got good movement as well across opposition defences, and I've seen that previously. He's the guy that will go on to, particularly if West Ham do press up against Stockport, he's the guy to carry the ball as well. He has got that pace about him. He's their danger man. Again, very, very similar to Bennett. I'm not convinced he's as clinical as I would expect at that level. He has scored some okay goals. He does get a lot of chances. The dynamic and the role of our 2 pivots in this game will be to try and nullify that. And I think if we can nullify and win this midfield battle against Stockport, you're preventing particularly the ability of their press, the ability to get forward, to create chances and overloads. And I think you look at someone like Reid, who's going to come a little bit deeper. If it's Connor Coventry, if it's Mark Noble playing there, if they can nullify and win the ball off him in that phase of play, I think you're making it very, very difficult for Stockport to try and create anything and get anything going. So again, I think despite someone like him being the key danger man, being a man that particularly, if a Dawson or if a Balbuena plays, and he's got the pace and he's got the movement, possibly can cause him a few issues. possibly can also help them on transition. But I think, unfortunately for him, he's not clinical enough for me to trouble us. And I think we'll have too much defensively in midfield to prevent him. And I think that he needs that element of play. And it is going to ask a lot of the centre midfielders to push the ball forward and push onto West Ham in possibly a 5-man West Ham midfield. So it isn't going to be an easy game for Stockport to play through and play as expansive as possible. It does massively suit us to try and nullify their style of play and hit them on the counter. And I think you look at the wing-back areas, as I'll get onto, will be the areas that West Ham find the most success in. And particularly, playing crosses into and across the defence, because they struggle with movement in between the lines. So, listen, I'm still confident in this game. Let's get into the West Ham predicted 11. Of course, it's going to be a massively changed one from what we're expecting to see. However, I expect this man to play for West Ham in goal. Not for me. I don't think it'll be Dave Martin. It could be, to be fair. It could be Trott. I think Randolph will play in. Just from what I understand that Moyes is, what I've heard of, him suggesting about the team news, in particularly against Stockport, I think he'll look to play a relatively senior side. Listen, Randolph's played one game previously. He hasn't been used week in, week out. I don't feel like there's an excuse really to drop him even for David Martin. Listen, we all love David Martin and his heroics at Chelsea, but for me, I'd rather Randolph was in goal, because I think it's dangerous to switch off. It's dangerous to switch off against a side like this. I think they can create chances in the game. So I would feel much more comfortable having someone like Randolph in goal. And for me as a keeper, there's no real reason to rest him. It's my opinion. Let me know in the comment section. Would you have Dave Martin and give him a chance? I think it'll be a back four. Like I've said, I think it'll be a 4-2-3-1. I think Moyes will keep it very, very similar. Let's start with a right back position. Ryan Fredericks. Again, in the last game that he came into, I thought he was impressive. I thought he dealt with his recovery pace, particularly against Southampton, was superb. Listen, he's not going to get in over the side over Vladimir Soufal. I think Soufal is defensively a little bit more switched on. I think it's interesting where you've got the wing-back system. If Stockport can put a press on us and play in beyond, I actually would back Fredericks in this game, not only because of the quality level, but just because of the athleticism and the pace. His recovery pace is fantastic. And I think his ability to carry the ball as well and beat that Stockport press is what we'll see this game. I think West Ham should really try and push our fullbacks up, because whilst there is a threat from Stockport on transition, that they leave so much space that there's no reason why West Ham can't pick up the ball, move into space, and press as a team and hurt them on the counter. So for me, in that sense, offensively, defensively, Fredericks is a good choice. I think he gets the run out anyway, because Soufal needs a break. Like I said, with Souček, Bryce, Antonio, when they've played regularly, they need a break in these type of games. And listen, Fredericks has got more than enough quality to deal with Stockport County. The centre-backs, again, I think it will be this. I think Ogbonna gets a rest, like I've said before. I think probably Balbuena. I think Balbuena plays. Let's start with Diop. Right, Diop will come in. For me, Diop at the moment, from what I've heard, is the fifth choice centre back. He didn't play over Craig Dawson where Balbuena was injured. You've got Ogbonna in there. Balbuena, he's a fourth choice, really. I think who else we play in there? Creswell, I guess, to a degree. He needs game time. We saw him against Crystal Palace. I thought he was shaky on the ball. We couldn't deal with the press. I think West Ham were trying to accommodate him too much into the side. I worry about him playing out from the back. This is a completely different type of game. I think he can't afford to play out from the back in this game. They will press us. They will try and hurt us. They'll push their team up and possibly try and capitalise on a mistake. You look at the midfield as well, like I've said, with the run of Rooney, almost in that 8 role. Again, it's something for Diop to contend with. He should have enough physically, aerially. I think he's more than capable enough in this game. For me, it's more about game time, keeping him fresh if we do need him for whatever reason. But again, he'll play down that left-hand side of the centre-back pair, and I'm sure he's good enough to do that. Now, on the right-hand side will be Fabian Balbuena. Again, very, very similar reasons. I think he's been fantastic this season. I think he's improved week on week. There are a few times that I'm massively concerned in terms of his aggressiveness to try and go and win the ball. It could be problematic in this game. Like I've mentioned, you've got the likes of Reid and Bennett working off each other, the secondary run of the midfielder. You'd be looking at the two defensive midfielders to deal with that and stop Balbuena being aggressive in that tackle. I think that comes really for both Balbuena and Diop in this game, to be resolute, to be disciplined, but equally to not take chances. I think it's easy to come up against Conference Premier opposition and say that we can afford to create chances and push forward and leave spaces in behind. But this is a side that really is front foot first. Like I say, he needs to keep fresh. I prefer him over Craig Dawson. That's just my opinion. But again, if Moyes is going to give a rest to a centre-back pairing that's played the past 2 games, it's a no-brainer that Balbuena will start on the right and Diop on the left. For very similar reasons, and a player that I thought did well in that left wing-back position, Ben Johnson, probably will come in at left back. Again, the same reason. Creswell needs a break. We all need a break, really, our centre-backs. For me, I cannot see one of the first choice centre-backs playing in this game. I think we've got enough in defensive positions at the moment to deal with it. Johnson, very, very good one-on-one. I'd be looking at the 2 defensive midfielders support the 2 centre-backs in terms of that extra runner. The role of Johnson in this game is to really deal with that wing-back run. And I think he's good enough. He's more than good enough one-on-one. In fact, he's probably better there. He has actually shown going forward, even on the left-hand side that is his weaker side, that he can be progressive, that he has got a good delivery. And like I said, particularly with Fredericks and Johnson, if we can win the ball, particularly off the wing-backs, and we can go in there and go and beat the 2 pushing centre-backs on those sides that push up a little bit too high, there's no reason why Johnson and Fredericks can't run into space and push West Ham up the field. So you're looking at it from that perspective. I think they're both more than capable to play in this game. I actually think they'll be important to a counter-attack based on who I think is going to play. But I've no problem playing either of them. I think this is a game for the first team to have a rest, and I believe all of these players are more than capable to deal with. But I guess there is an element of trying to deal with those additional runs. For me, the midfield needs to work hard in this game. I think if you can nullify Stockport's midfield, you nullify a lot of their distribution, the switch ball in behind. You can nullify their strikers trying to drop deep and push West Ham centre-backs out of position and get a run in behind. So I think it comes down to the roles of the 2 pivots in this game. Now, I'm kind of half excited to see this guy play if he's fit, and I'm not sure. I know he had an injury, I think it was around November time. He may just be fit, he may not. Connor Coventry, from what I've seen of him, listen, he's a deep line playmaker. He's got fantastic distribution, of course, which he can do from either side. I think physically he's quite strong as well. He's good in the tackle. If he plays in this game, I think his role particularly is to break up that of the additional runs, the press. You look at Crosdale to push forward. Even Maynard, I've said he's a pivot, but sometimes he will push a little bit higher as well to put pressure, dealing with the likes of Rooney, and really taking that pressure off the West Ham back 4. And I think he's good enough to do it in this game. I think we've got more than enough in the midfield and in the wide areas as well to deal with the threat of the wing back. So it will be interesting. It will be a battle. It will be a little bit of a challenge for him coming into this fixture. I know it's against lower league opposition, but again, a senior start is a senior start, and he's got to adapt to that style. But his quality for me, particularly on transition, and I don't think either of our pivots in this game that they're going to necessarily carry the ball in the way that Rice and Souček will. But I certainly believe that they've got decent enough distribution to use the wide areas that will be exploited to break up the play and win the ball. And I think being combative in this side against this team is the way that you're going to nullify them and hurt them and protect that back 4. But nonetheless, I don't believe they need to go out and press the ball. I think ultimately, in some instances, allowing Stockport to have the ball and trying to use the attacking midfielders to break up the play when they're trying to play out from the back and put on a press is the way that West Ham can do so without putting too much pressure on the 2 pivots. Because like I've said, if you're trying to push them out and they're trying to go and win the ball off this midfield, as good as the other person could be in this system in the way that they play, and obviously Colin Coventry, they'll leave space in behind. And again, like I've said, Reid coming deep, the additional midfielder in Rooney, Crosdale possibly pushing up again. There's no reason why West Ham need to create that space and allow Stockport to have too much of the ball, because they will throw them in forward, they will push the wing backs up, and they will create chances in behind. Now, again, this guy gets a rap, particularly from me. Listen, against Brighton, against Southampton first, in the Premier League in general, I just feel like Mark Noble's athleticism is letting him down. To caveat all of that, by the way, I don't agree with the way that Moyes uses him in almost a 10 role, asking him to press. It's ridiculous. It's not. I think he's not a bad player technically, and I've never thought he's a bad player technically, but certainly there's no reason to ask him to go and press. And in this game, I would like to see him in a pivot role. I think his distribution is good enough at times. His passing range, yes, occasionally when he's trying to move the ball, when he's trying to play almost in that 10 role, that athleticism that he needs means that his passing is really sloppy. I'm probably giving away some excuses for him, but listen, it is Mark Noble. I think Mark Noble plays in this game. The obvious reason being that there is no other centre midfield or defensive midfield option to bring into the side. I just want to see his role utilised differently in this type of game, and period, if he goes and plays. There's no reason to ask him to go and press, play in a 10 role. He's never been a quick player, but of course his athleticism has dwindled in the game. But like I've said, I think he's more than good enough to protect the back four. I think positionally, if he can win the ball there, I think he's got good distribution to set off the attack. But I just want to see a minimal press from him in terms of his age and getting older. From Coventry, because I don't believe that's his style of play either. I think this is a game that we're not going to get the athleticism from the two pivots that we're used to seeing. But I don't think there's any reason why we need athleticism, because I think we've got enough in wide areas and in attacking midfield areas to carry us. Their role should be defensive. I'll be interested to see how he employs them. Knowing that I've said it, he'll probably go and ask Noble to go and press the Stockport midfield, and it'll leave spaces in behind, which I'll be massively disappointed if he does ask him to play that role. But for me, there's more than enough quality with Coventry and Noble against the Stockport side. But again, there are risks that can be taken. It'll be interesting to see if these guys do play, how Moyes will employ them. Now, the attacking midfield three that every single week, pretty much everyone has a debate about, as an argument about, but I think Moyes will play this team. I would like to see a bit more youth in there. I would like to see a bit more rotation in there and some players coming through, the likes of Nathan Holland. I don't think we'll see that. I think Pablo Fornals will play on the left-hand side of an attacking three. I actually think in some ways his work rate and his ability to press up on that right-sided centre-back could work in this game. And again, I think that is the element of Pablo Fornals' game that is a positive. His work rate, his ability to win the ball and his press. We will talk about each week about the fact that he misses a pretty blatant chance, or his pass can be a little bit sloppy. But I feel like this could work in this game, winning the ball up in those areas, particularly if he can win the ball up and allow an overlap with the likes of someone like Ben Johnson, who isn't a natural left wing back, but does have the athleticism, and we have seen that from him previously. If Pablo can win it in those areas, nullify, I think actually that we can stop their press from the get-go. We can win the ball high up, and there'll be so much space in behind because the wing back will push high. There's no reason why West Ham or Pablo Fornals can't move into that position and use his quality that I know he has in the final third. I sometimes feel with Pablo Fornals, when he picks the ball up in central areas, when he has to play a 5-yard pass, it's sloppy. But I feel like in that final third, I still believe he's got that quality. And if he's got somebody like Odebeku running onto a ball and playing in between the lines, and if Odebeku has the space to run into, you back him. It's an absolute no-brainer. I don't think we're going to see Fornals in the same way that we've seen him in previous games trying to support Creswell. I don't think there's necessarily a need for that. I think West Ham defensively have got enough with two pivots and a back four. But again, could be useful if they put the press on very, very high, and could be useful to try and win the ball up on the halfway line in those high areas, and hopefully can create chances from those. And West Ham can get the goals early and finish this game off, because there is a potential banana skin here with the way that they play. Centre attacking midfield, the number 10, again, is another point of contention always. Is it Saïd Benrahma? Could Pablo Fornals play? I think it could be Manu Lanzini. The reason why, again, similar to some of the selections in defence, is he needs game time. And I think he has played a couple of games here and there. He has, for me, looked very good in those games. I think he looks really, really positive in the final third. I know this side is really based on athleticism, but I feel like Lanzini's best work is in the final third. And if he gets the ball, he's looking sharp as well. His ability to play balls actually between the lines. If Stockport are able to get back into their defensive shape, they will make it difficult for West Ham to try and break them down. You look at somebody like Manu Lanzini, is the guy that can play balls through lines. If a player that he has got running in beyond, possibly even in the wide areas, maybe if Pablo Fornals can try and make a wide run, or even Yarmolenko, I doubt it, because essentially they're both inverted wingers, but certainly you have to back Lanzini's creativity. He does need runners in beyond. It is difficult to break down a low block at times, particularly in the way that the midfield will work when Stockport are in that defensive shape. But you'd back Manu to create something. From what I've seen in the FA Cup this weekend, teams that play these low blocks at times are impossible to break down. I'm not talking about Marine, but so Crawley, for me, the way they did in terms of their low block and then pushing out and pressing out, is how I expect Stockport to try and emulate that type of performance. So again, Manu comes in obviously to possibly give Saïd Benrahma a rest, possibly because he needs game time. I think he's got real quality, and I think his final ball in behind that Stockport defence, when they're in that defensive shape, could be the difference if West Ham are in possession. But I don't think it's going to be a foregone conclusion that West Ham are going to dominate possession in this game, whether David Moyes allows Stockport to do so, or whether he wants to sit back in a low block and let them have it. So it will be interesting. But but we could need him. We could need him at times. So, right-hand side of that attacking midfield three, you've got, it is, when I find the graphic, and it is here. It's not, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be Yarmolenko. Yarmolenko on that right-hand side, cutting into his left. Again, very, very similar to the role of Pablo Fornals. He's going to have to press up against that left-sided centre-back that will push right up to the halfway line. I think Yarmolenko, for what he lacks in pace, and he clearly does both offensively and defensively, but I think his work rate and his intention to press and try and win the ball is there. It could be enough in this game. I don't expect him to, even if he wins the ball on the halfway line, to be able to accelerate and get him beyond. There will have to be in behind from the centre forward and the number 9 in this game. That is the pressure that we're going to have to put on him, because simply I think that the options that will come in won't have enough to carry the ball. And even I've spoken about Lanzini looking sharp in the final third, I'm not massively convinced that he has the raw pace after that injury to accelerate and really utilise the space in behind. So again, I suppose if we were looking at it from a different perspective and we could bring a Jarrod Bowen on, maybe even a Cyber Rama, who isn't naturally quick but very good at taking players on and utilising space, this would be a different game we're talking about. Could be very, very, I don't want to say easy, but certainly it would be an easier game for us to win, because we would have the chances in order to do so. But it's gonna be interesting to see how Yarmolenko plays. I don't believe it benefits him coming in. Not him or Fornals really as an inverted. I think they've struggled actually, Stockport, against direct players that can get to the byline, because they will try and come central in that defensive shape. They will concede space on the wide areas, and I think West Ham never have really played with those direct players. And I spoke about somebody like a Nathan Holland, and he's even played off the left-hand side coming in on his right. I think we miss at times those direct players. So it possibly could be an avenue to push up Fredericks or Ben Johnson to create that direct overload in the wide areas and try and exploit the space that they'll leave and get crosses into the box and push players in there, because it will create chances for us and we will inevitably get a goal if we put enough pressure on them. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Yarmolenko isn't the first choice on that right-hand side. Jarrod Bowen is. And I think I would like to protect Jarrod Bowen. The only thing I would think about is later on in the game, if it is tight and Moyes wants to go and finish off, Bowen would be the obvious choice because of his pace, his directness. He can beat a man, his finishing as well. Possibly could play in the number 9 and hurt him between the lines. It would be a no-brainer if that was the case. But I think Yarmolenko in this game probably does enough to start. Be looking for him to use the quality of his left foot and some of that delivery into the front man, which I want to talk about now. Listen, West Ham are really lacking a front man. I don't know if you've noticed, but obviously Sebastian Haller's left. Mikel Antonio's obviously come back from the hamstring injury, and I think Moyes is introducing him minute by minute and game by game at the moment, and I think he'll look for that Burnley game as the starter. In which case, this guy should get his first start for West Ham in the senior team. It is Oda Beku. It is the guy that everyone talks about that was so impressive in the under-23s, particularly in pre-season. I think there was a few in there, to be fair. I think him working off Zhu as well, Akinola as well, they worked together very, very well, and they did create chances off one another. But I think Oda Beku's finishing is absolutely top drawer. Fantastic off both the left and the right foot. We've all seen the South End goal even. From nearly 35 yards out, almost a pass into the bottom corner. It is impressive. He does have good movement. As a number 9, he will be more mobile than somebody like a Sebastian Haller. I think mobility in this game is crucial, whether Stockport are in a position. Purely because I think, like I've said, the 2 centre-backs will push up, even with the pivot. I think Sam will look to utilise the wide areas. If we can go and win it in the wide areas, of course there needs to be someone running in beyond, because there will be a lot of space when they're out of position. And Oda Beku seems to be the guy that will occupy that space and make that move. It would be impressive to see. Equally, when deliveries into the box, they tend to struggle in defending between the lines and players that can make that run. Oda Beku is the obvious candidate in this team to make that run. I don't think we're going to get that necessarily from the attacking midfielders. I think their role will really be to push up and try and win the ball off the 2 centre-backs. And create really a transition high up the field. But it does mean a lot of pressure is on Oda Beku to make those runs and to take his chances when he gets them. I think he'll have a lot of chances in this game if he does play. It's going to be really interesting how West Ham conduct this game. I think they'll have the chances. I'm not sure we've got the personnel in transition really for me to effectively sit here and say we can finish this game early doors. I think possibly we can make it a little bit more difficult for ourselves than we need to. But I think defensively we've got enough there to nullify them, which of course they play this expansive football and they try and play in behind. But West Ham have got enough experience, recovery pace, positioning, one-on-one quality to deal with that. the attacking midfielders as well. I think there's a real clear-cut chance here for them to try and press on, particularly the pivot in Maynard, as well as the left-sided centre-back and the right-sided centre-back that will push up incredibly high. And then you look at somebody like Odebeku that possibly could be left one-on-one or in behind on goal against Stockport. And you just feel that in that mould of a player that he is, that he will get chances in this game. Even in areas, if they do go to a low block and they can play that, I think West Ham will look to push on the two fullbacks. And I think we've got enough to hurt enough to finish this game. Again, it's a bit of a weird game because I think in some aspects, I don't know what to expect. This will be a slightly changed side. I'm not sure what Moyes' intention is for this cup competition. I personally believe he'll try and rest a couple of players. But equally, I guess, even when he does rest a few players, some of the first team players that we've seen infrequently this season will come in because our squad depth just simply isn't good enough. And I'm not sure Moyes is the type of man to introduce a lot of youth team players. Maybe he'll shock me. Maybe he'll give players like Fredericks an extended rest. I'm not sure, and possibly look to bring in an Ashby. Les could come in, Baptiste. There are multiple options that he could look to choose to, but I think knowing Moyes, he'll try and keep it quite a strong squad and impress himself. And like I say, we shouldn't sit here and write Stockport County off. Yes, defensively, they expose themselves. They leave a lot of areas in behind. The fullbacks push on. I think they can get away with that to a degree in the Conference Premier. They have got the quality to keep the ball, win the ball. Their press is very, very good in that division. But equally, if a side has genuine pace in behind, quality, can push their midfielders up and try and win the ball high in the press, it's really, really easy for them to try and get a chance in on goal. And I expect West Ham to do that. I think we've got the quality in this game. So for a score prediction, I'm going to go... I was going to say 3-0, but I'm going to say 3-1 West Ham. I think Odebeku gets on the score sheet. Possibly 4-0s, and maybe a play like a Diop from a set piece. I think West Ham will be way too strong for them in this game. I think they're going to cause us a few issues early doors, a little bit of an adaptation stage to the way they play. Possibly issues as well just in front of that back four, depending on how Noble is employed in that system. But I think we've got too much. I think they could get a goal late on. I think if West Ham switch off and we make a few substitutes, we introduce a few youngsters, they've got the players in the style of play that they play to hurt us if we give them a little bit too much space. But it will be an interesting game. I am looking forward to it. Make sure you do join us on the West Ham Way YouTube channel from 7:30 tomorrow evening. There'll be the lineups, the build-ups, and of course the live match commentary with all the lads. I am looking forward to it, and you'll get your usual post-match reaction as well. Fingers crossed we go through. No potential banana skins. If you have got this far, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to the West Ham Way YouTube channel. And as ever, until next time, take care. Come on, you irons.